Welcome to the Professional Troublemaker Podcast. This is a place where we help you cultivate the courage, authenticity, and audacity you need to use your voice, take up space, and live a life that is so bold, even your wildest dreams say goals. I'm your host, Luvvie Ajayi Jones, New York Times bestselling author, sought-after speaker, and side-eye sorceress, bringing you thought-provoking conversations with amazing people who have taken action, done scary things, and rocked the boats to an audacious life. Like the late, great John Lewis said, these are the kind of people who are never, ever afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Before we jump into today's interview, know that this podcast is named after my second New York Times bestselling book, Professional Troublemaker, The Fear Fighter Manual, which is available now wherever you get your books. With this book and with everything that I do, I am on a mission to help 1 million people live audaciously. To do that, they must fight their fear. So think of it, 1 million people who are out there standing on the edge of something great and need that little push of encouragement. That push to be the domino, to say the hard thing, to have the hard conversation. 1 million people kicking their fears to the curb and stepping into the life that they've been dreaming of. 1 million people asking for a raise. 1 million people, starting a fierce job that they're not sure they're ready for. 1 million people doing something that feels so big that their wildest dreams say goals. My goodness. That is what writing this book has done for me. What it's already done for those who are reading it and gifting it to others. This book has empowered people to say yes to things that they were previously saying no to. It's empowered people to have tough conversations they weren't gonna have before. People have asked for raises and promotions and gotten them after reading this book and finding the courage to speak up. The domino effect of what has been happening when a few people have decided not to live in the realm of fear has been amazing. Think of what could happen if 1 million people stop letting fear be the first factor in their decision-making. An audacious mission like that can't happen without you. So let's get this book in the hands of as many people as possible. Buy a copy of Professional Troublemaker for yourself or as a gift for your friend who needs a push. I know it'll change your life like it's changed mine. And I know it will change lives of all these people who touch it because domino effects are real. Professional Troublemaker, which is available in hardcover or audiobook, I narrated it, and ebook, is now at professionaltroublemakerbook.com. Order it there or wherever you buy your books. My guest today is an international speaker, professional development coach, and my sis, Jovian Zayne. We originally aired this episode in 2019, and I wanted to share it again. This conversation is super timely as the world starts to open up and we decide what we want to let go of and what we want to bring with us as we move forward in this new normal, whatever that is. One of the things that I think is important to think about is your purpose. And Jovian is the founder of the annual International Day of Purpose, which happens every year on the summer solstice, which this year is on June 20th. International Day of Purpose is a day set aside to explore your personal why and embrace the power of living on purpose. And I think that is something we really need right now. Jovi and I, we don't only talk about Day of Purpose, but we talk about how important it is to use your privilege and purpose to encourage the human spirit, create allyship, and operating across lines of differences. Jovi's one of the most brilliant and inspiring people I know. Like, she's a prayer warrior, she's a mom, she's a wife, but she is a purpose-driven human being, and I love her. And I'm excited to share this conversation again with those who may have missed it the first time around. And even if you didn't miss it, you gotta listen to this again, because there's some gems for you to pick up. One of my favorite people is on today. This is Jovian Zayne that is joining us. Jovi, I'm so glad you're on this show.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I'm so glad. We are long overdue, but perhaps it's just right on time.
It's right on time. It's perfectly on time. All right, so I'm going to give people your bio so they can understand your epicness, in all its glory. Jovian Zayne is an international speaker and certified leadership and professional development coach with years of experience in change management, global diversity, and leadership development. She leads the On Purpose movement, a firm committed to developing values-driven leaders through targeted coaching, public speaking, and facilitated experiences. Her firm's client list, everybody, Google, the New York Times, Goldman Sachs, Columbia University, Harvard, the Aspen Institute, Janelle Monáe's Wonderland Records, and Teach for America. Alongside notable individuals such as Tarana Burke, Serena Williams, and LeBron James, Jovian was named to the 2018 Route 100, an annual list of the most influential African Americans ages 25 to 45. She is the founder of the annual International Day of Purpose, a day created to inspire people of all generations to celebrate and activate the power of their purpose. In partnership with the Obama administration and various organizations and celebrities, its global reach has touched over 16 million people around the world. She is just epicness in human form. Jovi, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Luvvie. I'm so glad to be here.
Yo, yeah, no, Rants is much overdue to have some Jovi love on here. So I always start with asking people, when you were little Jovi, what did you want to be or do when you were growing up?
Yeah. Little Jovi wanted to be a therapist.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of clarity of mind that I wanted to sit people down, couch, and just have an epic conversation with them. I mean, it was something from, I think since I was about, honestly, I feel like I could speak to it very clearly once I was in middle school. Like I'd seen a therapist on television before. I remember overhearing one of my friends' moms, who was actually seeing a therapist, talk about it in the kitchen one time when we were coming back from soccer practice. I remember thinking, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to help people with their problems. I want to listen to them, give them perspective. Yeah, that's what I want. And growing up, honestly, it made so much sense to me because people naturally came to me with their stuff. For whatever reason, people found me to be a safe place for them to explore their identities, to explore their problems, to think through ideas. I mean, it was everything from like, girl, I know he's about to break up with me. How do I handle it? To, I really don't like this teacher. I'm trying to figure out how to change out of this class. To, me and my brother aren't getting along. How do we handle it? I mean, like people were coming to me with their stuff all through school. So it's the thing that little Jovi wanted to do, and I guess it's translated well to the work I do now.
So sixth grade you was basically running a mini therapist couch.
I was. I've always been holding space for people.
Wow. So like environment is a big part of who we are as humans, especially during these crucial formative years. And you grew up in North Carolina.
I did. I was, I always like to say I'm a Southern girl turned Big Apple biter, well now West Coast lover, but the South is certainly the place that birthed me and raised me. I was born in Texas, but I spent most of my formative years in the American South, between North Carolina and South Carolina. Yeah.
So how do you think North Carolina played into that idea that you were the person who holds space for people?
That is such a powerful question, and I'm going to answer it in reflection to a beautiful TED Talk by the incredible Thais Selassie, where she talks about this idea of challenging the notion of asking people, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Because for so many of us, that can be a loaded question, right?
Yeah.
And she invites us to approach that question from the angle of, where are you local to? Meaning that if you were to think about things from the standpoint of where you have rituals, restrictions, or relationships, it invites a much more open and transient kind of definition to explore the things and the environments that have helped to shape who you are. So for me, North Carolina certainly is a place that allowed me to North Carolina and South Carolina, that helped to form young Jovi because of the very important relationships that I saw. I mean, Luvvie, you know this, but I am the granddaughter of two Baptist pastors. Mm-hmm. So growing up, I saw incredible examples, and of course with their wives, my grandmothers, and other members of my family, I saw what it was like to hold space for people who were going through it. For the quote-unquote least of these. I saw what it was like I remember very candidly and specifically my grandfather on my dad's side, who we lovingly call Grada. I remember him getting up time and time again on Christmas Day, where we would be opening presents and the phone would ring and somebody would have lost someone, or somebody would be in the hospital, or some church member would be in crisis. And he would leave our, jubilant celebration to go see about members of the church. And I saw what that was like for someone to hold space, even when it wasn't convenient, how important it was to put someone before yourself. So being a product of that kind of environment really helps to shape the way that I understood the power of relationships and being there for people. I also say, the rituals of church, the rituals of family, traditions, everything from like family talent shows to oh my goodness, having to do book reports and to talk through them, to soccer practices. I mean, like there were tons of rituals that I had growing up from, grade school to college that the South helped to shape in me. And of course, I would also say restrictions, like there are certain things I couldn't do because I was in the South and I saw. I mean, I'm a young Black girl. Like I identify as a cisgender Black woman now, but I was a cisgender Black girl growing up. And I was well aware, very well aware of who I was because of how often I was othered, how often I was the only Black girl in my classes, how often I was the only Black girl on my soccer teams, the traveling soccer teams. I mean, I played competitive soccer through college. And so, I mean, outside of one of my best friends, Jamila Seymour and Michelle Battle, we sometimes, when we were lucky enough to be on the same team, we would find comfort in each other. But I was used to being the other. And yet, Luvvie, this is the thing. And yet, there was something about the way that my parents helped me to understand who I was and who I was made to be, that I didn't adopt an identity of another in a way that made me to feel less than, outcasted, or not enough. Ooh. But it actually unleashed a sense of confidence, clarity, and confidence in myself that that I won't just survive in spaces where I'm the only young Jovi, but that actually I am there for a reason, and there is a deeper human connection for me to make. Like it's been a part of who I was since I was young. And, people see it in me now and it's hard for people to pinpoint, but the truth is like this calling to invite people in to be in relationship with me, to like know that they can be in a safe space to be themselves. It's just been a part of me. And I think the South did have a lot to do with that.
So that actually is a really powerful piece that I want to pull out. The idea that you were often the only, and instead of the usual of people kind of reducing themselves or diminishing themselves and feeling out of place and out of voice, you let it embolden you at a young age.
I did. I will tell you this story I'll never forget. This is what I guess I've talked to at some other point as the conversation continues. But, people, the work I do now is all around purpose. And I think there are a few things that help us to understand our sense of why. And when I was in fifth grade, I was about 10 years old. I'll never forget, there was this kid named Junior Butcher. And Junior was the exact opposite of me. He grew up in a lower income area while I was growing up in middle income area. He was a white kid, obviously in Black. He was overweight. I wasn't overweight at the time. Amen, I'm not now, I don't believe. But right, he was overweight. And Junior was just trying to keep up, if you will. But he was an easy target for kids to pick, make fun of and to pick at and whatnot. And here I am. I think there may have been like maybe one or two other Black kids in this fifth grade class. But I remember knowing, I understood that I had somewhat of a social capital in the class, and that enough people liked me, the teacher liked me, I had relationships that mattered, quote unquote. And I remember one day being like, people have got to stop picking on Junior. This isn't cool. Like, this is not okay. And I went home and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't have to talk to my brothers. I didn't talk to my mom and dad about it. I just had made up in my mind, I'm going to interrupt this system of bullying. I'm going to stop what's happening to Junior. And as much as I was afraid, because, you know how you talk about those jump out of the airplane moments where you feel like, oh, am I really about to do this? I remember the next day being like, am I about to do this? Am I about to spend some of am I going to put myself out there for the sake of this kid? But I knew I was. And through a series of very strategic house of card type moves, I remember talking to some friends over here and other friends over here and basically creating allyship around Junior and convincing other people we were going to leave him alone. And that wasn't necessary anymore. I'll never forget that moment because I was proud isn't even the right word, but I think I actually was relieved when it was done. and people weren't really messing with him anymore, I felt a sense of like a deep breath out of my body, like a deep sense of relief that I hadn't betrayed my heart, that I hadn't betrayed myself.
That I hadn't betrayed my heart.
That I hadn't betrayed my heart. Yeah. And so when I talk to people about this idea of understanding your why and purpose, I think there are a number of things that help people to get that clarity. And it's moments, what I would call this breadcrumb moment of potential betrayal that helps me to remember who I'm supposed to be. Like I'm supposed to invite people in. I am supposed to help bridge gaps. I'm supposed to operate across lines of difference, whether that's political difference, social identity difference, and that there's a larger call for me to do that. And I'd be lying. I'd be lying if I say I haven't known that for a long time. I know not everybody may operate with that sense of clarity, but the truth is I have.
And you honored
I'm grateful
that.
for it. I've honored it. And I know that there's been a responsibility that's come with it that I think has been tapped back and been given to me from family. Again, back to like how I grew up, the relationships there and everything. I think growing up the way I did with my grandparents and seeing my grandfathers, my grandmothers, and my parents, it shaped me.
I'm going to come back because there's a piece in that story that I want to pull out later or even after I ask this question, which is a piece that you used your privilege for good at such a young age. But right now, talk to me about how you grew up. Like, what was your family life like? And because I want to find out about the people who were able to create this young girl or guide her through the world so she is the girl who is telling somebody not to bully somebody else at 10.
Yeah. Young Jovi grew up in the middle of two incredible brothers. So Nate is my older brother. Roman is my younger brother. I'm 3 years apart from both of them. We, again, were born in Texas to just the most outstanding, I think, examples of love and partnership that we could have imagined. Matt and Chandra Irvin are my beloved parents who've been married now almost, 44 years? And I always say this, I think it's been kind of precarious over the past 2 years, but like we really were the Cosby Show. And I knew that. I mean, I knew it to the point where I was kind of like, y'all wish y'all had, like the Huxtables wish they had what the Irvins had.
Oh.
And I think, I'm serious. I'm serious from like the kind of people that came to visit, the way that we were with our grandparents. I mean, the only thing that we had that the Huxtables didn't have were like spankings. Like we got whooped. That's for sure. I have to say that. We never saw the real punishment that happened on the Cosby Show, but I know in our house, spankings were involved. And I do think for me, that played a part in how I understood discipline. So with restriction, with, a few spankings here and there, Jovian understood that she's responsible for how she operates in the world. If you tell a lie, there are going to be consequences. When you don't do something you said you're going to do, there are consequences. When you hit somebody, there are consequences. So I grew up in a home with incredible love, and I think that love also, it showed itself in terms of like, if I think about Gary Chapman's love languages, a lot of physical touch, a lot of words of affirmation, like a lot of words of affirmation and quality time. I remember every day going off to school, and my mom would tell my brothers and I, do your best. Like, I love you. Go do your best. And the way I still say it to myself sometimes, because I got to remember I have to do my best, not Luvvie's best, not, Angela's best, not George's best, my best. And my best may vacillate from day to day, but I know what my best is for that day. And I just need to rise to the occasion of what the day has presented, what, the Lord has presented to me. So that's a huge part of how it's formed. And I know without a doubt, the reason why I can navigate so many spaces that I do now is because there was a unending river of love and confidence that has been poured into me since I was little. I did not have to look externally for affirmation, and I'm grateful that I didn't, because Lord knows that the messages that I was receiving outside of the home could have been in direct conflict with the messages I was receiving. So if I wasn't getting the reminders that, like my dad still tells me now, like I'm the best thing to fall off the Christmas tree. Like you are, like, and he has a great nickname for me. I won't say the whole thing. I'll just say Muffin, but that's a part of my nickname. And he will say things like, Muff, don't you forget who you are. Don't forget who you came from. My family, my grandfather was and my grandparents were extremely poor. And particularly my dad's dad grew up in this side of North Augusta called Boggy Branch, where Luvvie, I mean, like dirt of dirtest roads, one-room homes, just poor. Bertha Irvin, my great-great-grandmother, couldn't even write her own name. She just wrote her ex.
Wow.
Too poor to receive any care. My grandfather actually received his call to ministry at his mother's funeral because they were so poor, no minister would officiate. And so this, shotgun funeral happened, and he sat in the back pew fuming and upset and sad. And that's when he said, I will never let anyone go without a proper funeral again. And God, I hear you. So that's what I was born into, and I was born into, like, my mother and my father both are civil rights leaders in so many ways. My grandfather's too. But my parents shaped me in that my dad, when he was only 14 years old, he integrated schools in the South.
What?
He was supposed to be joined by so many others. Yeah, imagine. Go back in your mind right now, Luvvie, 14. You know what we were doing at 14, right? Imagine being 14 years old and you and your other friends, some of your other homies, y'all decide, okay, yeah, we're going to heed the call from Dr. Martin Luther King. But then that fateful day comes, there's no Jean Arthur Bell. Tommy doesn't show up, and it's just little Nathaniel Irvin. He has to get on the bus. He is ridiculed. People are spitting the hurls of, obscene language. And he has to persist for a full year through that. Were times when people didn't want to speak to him at all, right? Until like the last day of school. And so that's what I grew up in. That's the strength that I know is carried with me. Those stories I heard, stories of my mom with a cohort of other really brave Black women, helped to integrate Winthrop College in the South. I mean, they poured that into me. They taught it to me. And my brothers, I can't talk enough about them. I mean, you know them.
Your brothers are epic.
They literally are. Like, they're Grammy nominated, all that kind of good stuff. But besides all of the things that come with their incredible talent, and I have to also, how can I speak to my parents for this? I think I could have grown up in the middle, being the only girl, perhaps a little warped. And, people say, oh, little children do X, Y, Z thing. I think maybe I was a little saved because I was the only girl, so I felt like I got enough attention and I found my own way.
Yeah.
But, I was certainly growing up, with an older brother who made a perfect score in the math section of the SAT.
Wow.
That wasn't me. Right. Certainly wasn't me. He could sing and all these other things. And I was like, nope. But the cool thing is, I think my parents did a really great job of cultivating our individual strengths and affirming who we are, the natural things that were coming out, and holding us accountable again to like my mom would always say, do your best. Like, I wasn't in competition with Trey.
Nope.
Like, Nate was my competition. I wasn't in competition with Roman. We were always in support of one another, and that's persisted today. So we're thick as thieves. That's a lot of why young Jovi is who she is.
Man, because ultimately you've been the same person, just been in an evolution of yourself. So you were owning your power, and you understood and acutely had this grasp of the power that you walked in every room in, which is a big part of people recognizing their privilege. So you understood your privilege from jump, which is why you were able to then be like, hey, even though I might be one of the few Black girls in this class, I'm actually popular. So I should probably use my popularity to say, stop messing with Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What?
I mean,
yeah.
There's so much to unpack in that, but I think being my faith is a huge part of how I understand myself to be responsible to not just myself or my family, but being responsible for creating a world where we can all be seen, heard, and valued. I mean, I just cannot say that enough. Like, my understanding of the way God sees me, loves me, trusts me enough to exist, and has thought about me in a way with such care that he created me in a way that has allowed me to, as people say, often to me, oh, Jovian, you carry such a light with you. And I'm like, well, I should, if I think about it, if I'm a true reflection of God and my creator, I should be shining all the time. And so I often think about my responsibility, even as like a Black person on earth, and specifically a Black woman. Yeah, I am marginalized. There's no doubt about it. And there's so many aspects of my life. And I got stories on stories on stories where the discrimination and the oppression has been overwhelming. And yet, there has been a resilience in my spirit that I know comes from ancestors, I know comes deeply rooted in faith, that has allowed me to carry on and to carry on in a way that invites other people to carry on too, and to build bridges, to create more equity and justice in the world. Like I have to use what I have at all costs for other people. It's not for me. Like my ability to be confident in spaces isn't just for Jovian to thrive. Like if I'm not doing it in a way that's going to allow for other humans around me to be their best, what am I doing?
What are we doing it for?
What am I doing? Like if the next Black girl won't feel better in the role that I just inhabited, I didn't leave it in a way that I could have. Yeah. I need to feel responsible.
How would you advise somebody who's like, I am the only, I am the first, I often feel alone in these rooms. What would you say to them to find their power, own their power?
Yeah. Well, I encourage them. Well, first I'll say I could speak to that in so many ways, because whether it was like first Black woman to be senior class president at UNC, only Black woman to ever have my job, and I used to work in this big CPG company, which I won't name right now. I mean, the first could go on and on and on for me. And the earlier in my life, there were times when it did feel overwhelming. Or, to be even more honest here, and there's nuance here, when I would let my ego make me think that I had reached a pinnacle and there wasn't a responsibility to take care of that seat in a way that would invite other people in. So what I would say for the woman now, or for anyone who's listening, kind of like, yeah, I'm the only, what do I do? It is to be reminded that there is a purpose in the seat. There's a purpose in the seat. There's a purpose in the current assignment. And to remember that you didn't end up there by accident.
Yes.
You didn't. There was no accident in your arrival to the present moment. But consider that it was carefully crafted, that you played a role in co-constructing the moment with the Creator. And now is the time for you to do something very purposeful with the moment that you have. Consider, how do you want to show up in a way that invites other people in after you, or invites other people in alongside you? Don't let your ego convince you that, one, that you're the only person that could ever be in that space, because that's not true. And don't let your ego convince you that the burden is all yours. Sometimes we can mistake the blessing and really not absorb the blessing because we are looking too much at the strain of the transition to be in the new seat. But it's why it's really important that we keep our eye focused on what is this moment allowed me to do. And other thing I would say for people, like very tactically, people are like, oh, God, I'm overwhelmed by it. I mean, I think mindset is everything. But I also say, you know, there are people around you that have to support you and keep in the right mindset to help you navigate. So for me, it's always been the right mentors, sponsors, advocates, family members, and friends. Like I keep my circle tight and strong. You know this. And those are the people that I have to go to when my vision is blurry.
When your vision is blurry.
When my vision is blurry. And or when I need help taking out the trash.
Ooh, that's
so what I mean. Yeah. You know, what I mean by that is there's a smog that we're always breathing in. You know, the system of oppression that we exist in this world. I mean, it's a smog. And so no matter who you are, you're getting messages. And oftentimes those messages will conflict with a positive message of who you're supposed to be in the world.
Yeah.
I need help sometimes taking out the trash. I need help being reminded of who I'm supposed to be, what I'm able to do, what I'm capable of. So, you know, people got to be really careful around who are you allowing on your team? Because not everybody who's on your circle, you know, who's in your circle is on your team.
Ooh. Say that again.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Yeah, not everybody who's in your circle is on your team. And specifically consider it for such a time as this, if I do air quotes around that, there are different moments when you need different people in your life to rise to different occasions. You know, so there have been different times when I've had to call on my big mentor, Carla Harris, to support me through a major job negotiation. call on Jamina Bernard when I was unsure about how to deal with a funder. There's just you got to be careful, and using a sense of discernment to figure out, well, who are the right people who need to help me take out my trash and to clean my glasses so I can see myself and see the perspective and the situation for what it is.
And I think that's also important because we tend to assume that everyone's supposed to play every role in our lives. Like,
right, Luvvie?
Right? We think that every friend is supposed to be the mentor and the cheerleader and the child. Like, no, you got to have people for specific things.
You do. And it's not fair. It's not fair to put everything on every person, because everyone truly can't be everything for you. You got to be really careful about who you go to for what kind of counsel and what moment.
That's real. So when you went to college, what was your major?
Psychology.
Same. Same, friend. Same.
You know it. I started with it, left with it. I started to fall in love with business towards the latter part of my college career. And that's because I was doing a lot of big student leadership stuff. I was president when I was at UNC. And so working within like student government and organizational systems and teams, I'd been doing that since I was in high school and all these extracurriculars, but it just got to the place where, I was in meetings with like our provost and with the dean and all these things. And I was like, I belong here. Like I really felt I belong here. And I wanted to help navigate change through people.
So you graduate with your psych degree. What was your first job out?
I did. I graduated with my psych degree. I went on to get business certifications from Wake Forest's, at the time, background School of Management and Business, their School of Business in general. And the next step, is that what you asked? Like what I do then?
What was your next job?
Yeah. This is so crazy. Well, remember I was telling you I was in politics when I was an undergrad. So I actually thought in some way, shape, or form I was going to go into politics for real. So I moved to D.C. and started working with this organization called the Presidential Classroom. And that focused on civic education and leadership for students around the world. And I thought I was going to, in some way, shape, or form, like transition that into working on the Hill, like, begin to meet people and build relationships in ways that allow me to, pivot. But the closer proximity I got to government, the more I realized, government's not the route, business is the route, which I say that now in hindsight, and I can say it very smoothly, but I was bugging. Like, that was just a very, I was freaking out. It was a hectic time. I was like, I spent that summer in D.C. and, soon realized, okay, I need a plan B or plan C, D, something, Lord, like this isn't it. Moved back home to North Carolina for a short stint to regroup. And my mom, I love her. She was very gracious and, okay, Jovian, everyone knew I was going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But I think they did the right thing in holding me accountable to you're going to figure this out sooner than later, though. So, when I was home for that short stint, they made sure you better have a schedule. You better be talking to all these mentors.
Right.
I want you on your resume, all that kind of stuff. And thankfully, I was able to kind of, get my footing, and I moved into business, and I started working with a company named Black & Decker for a number of years, where I was doing marketing. Yeah, I got my foot completely wet in the sales piece of the business and then the marketing side of the business, and that moved me from North Carolina to Atlanta. And this is when life got really interesting, really, really interesting.
How so?
Well, I went from being very confident to slowly feeling less of myself every day. And this was happening it was like a paradox, because I was feeling less of myself every day, while also in the first two roles that I had within the company, being seen as someone who was very successful. I mean, I got promoted within my first 6 or 7 months, and I will never forget. Oh God, love you. Come with me here. We're in a parking lot at a Home Depot in Atlanta, and I was in my second role with the company, and I just got a phone call from a VP, and Jason was his name, and he said, Jovian, I know you're doing such good things. I'm really proud of you. I want to expand your territory and want to get you in a new position, and want to offer you this incredible marketing position in New York. And I literally said no.
What?
Like I just said no. I said no. And then the other side of my brain caught up quickly and was like, girl, you can't say that. I was like, oh, Jason, thank you so much for the opportunity. Just give me, I would love a few days to think about it, and I'll be back in touch. Hung up the phone, yelled and screamed like somebody was attacking me. Like, God, how could you do this to me? Why? I don't want to leave Atlanta. This is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. I mean, I was flipping out. Because at this time, I'm living in Atlanta. This is actually also the time when Wonderland was being started. So my brother and Janelle were beginning to work on the label and all this stuff. And I was using my experience in marketing to help. And I also had friends from Carolina there. So Atlanta, a transition from North Carolina to Atlanta is very smooth in some ways. Like it's still the South, it's comfortable. But this idea of going to New York was just mind blowing. And I was like, oh, no, God, you guys are tripping. Like I am actually, I was talking to God like, I think the way you should talk to who created you, like y'all should have that kind of relationship. But I was talking to God like, oh, no, sir. I don't know what you thought, but this isn't it. I was so upset. I was just furious. I was like, how could you take away this comfort? But the truth is, and this is how God, faith for me has just been such a big part of my existence. And I think about my relationship with God like my Joker card. Like I just wear it on my head. Like I'm out here. I'm good. It is that relationship that reminded me that I got to trust the being that created me to know what's best for me. And 3 days after that temper tantrum and I began to pray and, sought counsel, talk to my family, etc. And I had 2 cousins come into town and we talked about it. And there was a peace that came over me that seriously surpassed all understanding. The Bible talks about this in Philippians 4 and 6 and 7. But if you are to, with prayer and supplication, present your request to God, and the peace of the Holy Spirit will transform your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. Yes. That is literally what happened to me. There's a peace that came over me that just like it was a veil. And the same Jovi who was flipping out about moving to Atlanta all of a sudden got really comfortable with this idea of going to New York. And I had no other reason to get comfortable except for God was like, girl, I got you.
Wow.
And because I'd even played out the scenario, which I often do sometimes. Like, okay, so what if I am disobedient? What if I don't do it? What if I betray my heart this time? And I played it out. I was like, oh, that's going to be bad. I didn't even feel comfortable pretending or trying to be like, no, I'm just going to turn down the offer. I just knew it would be the worst decision I could make. So I found myself in New York. And back to this earlier point where I mentioned this idea of me feeling less and less like myself. As much as I knew I was supposed to go to New York, I thought I was going for that job, but I'm grateful it wasn't just about that job. It was so much more that happened to me once I got there. And thankfully so, because that last job was the worst job I've ever had in my life.
Why?
The worst. I've never felt more close to depression, more frustrated, a lack of confidence. There were times when I would literally get in my company car and just drive off and sit and cry and be like, God, why did you bring me up here? I knew I felt a peace about it, but I hate this work. There were times on the job where I dealt with sexual harassment. Because in the work that I was doing product research for these major commercial power tools, and I was working on ground zero at the time. I was going to the new Yankee Stadium build, and I was talking to contractors, understanding what they needed, so then it could be translated into marketing strategies, all this kind of stuff. The things that I saw, the stuff that I endured, I wouldn't wish on anyone. But I'm grateful I had the backbone and the fortitude to deal, but yet also know I didn't have to. And if I look back now, there are certainly things I would have done differently. But it was a really, really, really hard time.
How did you get out of it?
There was certainly an undercurrent of the grace of God that got me through. And I would say I knew after being in a year of that job, because this was also context, I was maybe the first or second Black woman to ever have the job that I had at the time. One of 7 women on a team of 300, a much broader team. I remember going to a team conference being like, oh, God, what is this? This is worse than I thought. And my manager and I didn't get along. She didn't trust me. I didn't trust her. I could tell she was intimidated by me. I didn't know why, which is, I've got stories on that for days. But It was bad. And the big lesson I've learned is when you linger in a situation longer than you're called to, there is a price to pay. And that will likely has a price to pay. Yeah. And you can apply that when you think about romantic relationships, work relationships, etc. But one of the biggest prices is going to come in the form of confidence. Like there were insecurities starting to creep up in me, etc. Again, back to this point I made earlier around like you got to turn to your tribe, your circle, your village to help you take the trash out. It was a daily haul. I was grateful. I got introduced through at the time, like I was beginning to explore anything because I was like, I got to get out of this job. And it was like this paradox of me knowing I got to get out of this job. And yet, Luvvie, I was operating with this great sense of fear. So I was like, oh, my goodness, I'm in New York. First of all, I had this unfounded worry that my family would be disappointed in me. There was no evidence. Like they'd given me no evidence to feel that way. But again, my own ego actually was driving this narrative of what success should look like to me at like 24 or whatever I was, which was trying to keep, and that your ego will keep you bound in a situation where God's trying to set you free. So that's why it's important to remember ego is like edging God out, as Deepak said.
Ooh,
my ego was trying to
edging God out.
Ego. Yep, edging God out. I also apply that in a way when I think about edging grace out. Because if I think about it, grace and God, I think, are one and the same. But there was enough, like God promises that his grace is sufficient every day. I had enough grace to leave that role. But my ego was keeping me trapped in thinking that, well, you won't be successful anymore. That you're a failure. You didn't make it. And also this real fear of like, well, how am I going to pay rent?
Facts, because real fears.
Real fear. And it's New York rent. This ain't Atlanta rent. Atlanta rent is fun.
New York rent is expensive.
Girl, please, Atlanta rent, you could be like, oh, I got $50 on it. They'll hold your security deposit for like, I don't know, 15 months. Where in New York, they ask for basically your firstborn, everything you've ever done in life to get an apartment. I was flipping out. But again, back to the circle and the tribe, I had been in counsel and people were telling me to start to, helping me to remember who I was, the things I said I wanted to do, and that there are other options. So I started to think about business school. And I got into a business program, really important one, Management Leadership for Tomorrow, MLC. And that's when I was introduced to the incomparable Holly Jackson, who changed my life. Holly was my MBA prep coach. And through our relationship, I was reintroduced, I should say, to Teach for America and Jamina Bernard. And that's when the pivot came. You asked specifically how I got out of it. Holly helped me to see that there was another route, and that my skills could be applied elsewhere. Because I couldn't communicate it. Like there are times when if you're not feeling confident in who you are, you're not feeling confident in what you've been doing, you can't communicate that to someone else. How I wasn't going to be as competitive as I would have been trying to apply for a job. So thanks to them, they helped me to navigate to leave the company in a way that worked for me, and then to find myself at Teach for America.
Imagine being in an online space where people's foolishness doesn't make you want to fight the air. That might sound impossible with your current choices for social media, but I was sick of wading through nonsense to find like-minded people, so I created my online community. And if you're the kind of person who is striving to be a professional troublemaker and fight fear, we need you to join us in that community because you need people to cheer you on. Love Nation is my online community and app that is a safe space in a dumpster fire world. It's the place for the most thoughtful, funny, most chill-deficient people on these interwebs. We're a community that comes together to make each other better with curated conversations, opportunities to connect, and challenges to help us transform and do better in every area of our lives. So, I want you to come in there, join us, become a citizen of Love Nation. So go to lovenation.com, LUVVNATION. Download the app in the App Store or on your Android. It's on iOS and Android. And come on through. All right, back to the podcast.
So how did you start the On-Purpose movement? How did you start the firm and this thing that now is taking you all over the world to change lives and hearts?
Yes. Yeah. So the On-Purpose movement really came through my work at Teach for America. I mean, I had a pretty incredible career there. And you think about it, there are certain places where you will truly just be trying to survive, and other places where you'll thrive. And I always coach and tell people now, or advise people, that you want to be very thoughtful around putting yourself in as many positions as possible where you are meant to thrive. And at TFA, for me, it's like I had been a seed that had been covered, and that's where I could blossom. So I came on board in that organization, and I was able to translate all my marketing experience into and sales experience into development and strategy. So using all those skills and talents to like sell products that I didn't care about at all, which was like ripping my spirit, to doing work that I thought was meaningful, connected back to educational equity. And while I knew the organization had a lot of work to do, I felt very capable in my ability. Like I began to feel more capable of myself and my ability to make change there. So my own sense of purpose started to take root in a different way. So from development and strategy into the human capital side of things, which goes back to Jovi as a psychologist, right? Like wanting to coach and support people. When I got deeply rooted in the human assets, human resources type of space, it was like I was on fire. Like I was seriously a girl on fire. And my early time when I was doing recruitment at the organization, I was helping people to find, to be in the right role at the right time that matches their skills, their insight, and their passion and their work. That's when this whole sense of purpose doubled down for me. And it actually, Luvvie, aligned with my own journey. I'd been in the organization almost 2 years, and I remember I looked back at my Facebook page not too long ago, and I saw this. I was like, doggone it, I've been saying this. And I certainly know I wasn't the first person to ever use this phrase. I think this exploration of purpose has been with human existence as long as we can remember. But I've written on Facebook back in 2010, I'm not going to be living by accident anymore. I'm going to live on purpose.
Hey.
And for me, I knew exactly what that meant. It meant that I was going to be intentional about how I show up and use my gifts, talents, skills, and abilities to encourage the human spirit. And that is the way that I understand my purpose now. My purpose is to encourage the human spirit. The assignment could look differently, but the purpose has stayed the same with me. That's the same purpose that made me make the decision to protect Junior Butcher. It's the same purpose that has been with me and that guided me when I needed to encourage my older cousin before our family talent show. I mean, that stuck with me. And it's the same purpose that when I was that recruiter at CFA, to be honest with you, I didn't actually care if people came on board on staff. What I cared about when I was having these conversations was helping people to see themselves and to be ignited and to understand their strengths, their abilities, their gaps in areas for growth, and how they could navigate their careers in ways that would help them to come alive. That is what I cared most about. And so, I was killing it in my work. And a lot of that came because I loved it, but also I was helping people to really be more on purpose and intentional about how they were living. And so through that, I continued to grow in the organization, got to be senior leader and everything, and was running a big team. And I was taking other leaders on what we would call at the time leadership journeys, explorations, and all over the country. And at some point, I had been approached by some external companies, which is funny, I worked, companies that are now my clients, to come and work for them full time. Again, back to my mentor circle, right? Advisors and whatnot. They were coaching and supporting me and figuring out, well, what role do you take? I knew it was time for me to leave the organization, leave Teach for America. I was 6 years at the time. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I think I was a managing director. And when I left, and it was an interesting transition time for the organization, I left knowing that I've got to be purposeful in how I continue to show up. And the Own Purpose movement was really born out of this one specific thing. I've been given an opportunity, Luvvie, to author, to be a part of an anthology called Lessons in Leadership. And I wrote a chapter on leading on purpose. And like true Jovi fashion, I celebrated in a big way. Like I had a whole book party, and it was also like the second coming of Jovi. I mean, I'd been in New York now, I don't know, 6-7 years. And I thought about I'm getting ready to leave the organization. I want to continue to do all this work I've been doing on the side. Because of course, while I was a recruiter, I was also beginning to build up clientele externally. And so I celebrated the second coming. And that night, I'll never forget, everything was on purpose. It was eat on purpose, read on purpose, connect on purpose. There's this big, coming out keynote and everything. And my good friend Koza, the next day, we had gone to lunch. He was like, yo, that was so lit. Everything was on purpose. He was like, and this is, I'm talking talking to a Black man, and he's saying how much that touched him and it changed him and it shifted the way he wanted to think about how he showed up. He was like, everything needs to be on purpose in my life. And I was like, you're right. And so that was like the beginning of me really doubling down on my own, business. And to be honest with you, Luvvie, like I didn't anticipate it would be what it is now. Like I also, while I was like
a lot of purpose, like a lot of purpose things.
Exactly. Like I'm continuing to like build up my clientele, but I also was looking for something else full time. But this is why a lesson I would give anyone is you got to be quiet enough and still enough to pay attention to the signs that have already been given to you. Because if I had been honest, God had text messaged me with clarity and been like, I'm calling you into entrepreneurship. I mean, it was as clear as day, but he had to make it even more clear where everywhere that I, went back to apply, like places that have been trying to recruit me and poach me for years, all of a sudden, like I'd get to the final round and then like the job would be closed or like, Jovian, we love you, but like, we don't have any more funding for the position or whatever. And so I had at this point to run my own business.
That's
so I was
incredible.
like, okay, you're right. Mm-hmm. And so the same places where I was looking, they're now clients.
Come on. Look, you were in those hallowed halls, okay? And now you are coming in and getting paid and then having to bounce and go touch other people in terms of your message. So you have On Purpose Day is coming up, the International Day of Purpose. And I want people to know about this and participate because it's really inspiring for everyone to collectively come together on one day to talk about their why.
Yeah. I mean, the Day of Purpose was born after I continued to work with clients. I think I had gone through my own kind of wrestling with understanding my why. And I was at dinner with a great friend, Ty Beauchamp.
Love her.
Dear big sis, right? Like just incredible soul. And I was telling her just how I was basically on fire. I was jittering the whole time we were talking. I was like, oh, Ty, I keep seeing this trend where people are feeling more frustrated with not knowing why they're doing what they do. And I just want to encourage people to be their best on purpose. I'm like, I feel like we should celebrate it. And she was like, well, when are you going to celebrate it? How, is there a day already? Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And she would not, like, I wasn't eating. She also wouldn't let me rest. She was like, let's research right now. So I'm beginning to research while we're at dinner, food getting cold. Like, is there a day already? Like, how can we celebrate? How can more people be excited about the power of understanding their purpose? And next thing you know, I look up, there is no day. She's like, buy it. Buy the domain right now. We're going to work on trademarking, but get to this. And so within like 24 hours, it was bought. I was working with a lawyer to try to, get trademarked, everything. And it just blew up. Like I for the first like 3 months when Day of Purpose was being born, I barely slept. I was a woman on a mission. I was so clear. I was so excited because this whole idea of what would happen if everyone in the world was living on purpose, I just kept thinking about my own answer to that question. And what couldn't shake me was the clarity that life would be better. We would be more accountable to one another. There would be unending positive change. There would be a freedom, a clarity, and a confidence that so many of us would be able to walk with that we don't when we are more concerned about being liked by other people or being like someone else. Those are two major distractions from people understanding their own personal sense of why and being connected and committed to it. So, the day was born out of that, and it happens every year on the summer solstice. And what better day, I always say, than the longest day of the year, for sunshine, than to think about the power of your why and to reconnect to it. And so we invite people to always go to dayofpurpose.org, spend time, reflecting on what are your unique possibilities for your life. What's the assignment you're on right now? People are always like, well, Jovian, how should I celebrate? And I always pose the question back to them. Of course, I have tons of examples and ways. And you can do things like, Amber in San Francisco who hosts a yoga class, or you could be like Samki in South Africa who is using her skills and talents as a financial advisor to host a workshop on like wealth on purpose, teaching people to be more connected to understanding their personal wealth and development. But it also could be something as simple as like downloading our purpose packet, walking through it, getting some reflection questions. It could be writing a letter of intention to yourself and a letter of encouragement to somebody else.
Yes.
It could be making that doctor's appointment that you've been putting off. Because Lord knows it's really hard for you to be on purpose if you're not taking care of your body.
Facts.
Right?
Facts.
Exactly. So there's a myriad of things for people to do, but definitely we encourage you to go to dayofpurpose.org, get, advice from us. Also, if you run a company, a small business, think about how you as a leader are leveraging that day to remind the people who are reporting into you, who are working with you, why do you lead the way you lead? What is it that you do? What brought you to the work and what's keeping you in the work? Like, it's an incredible day for people to double down on their values and to be very transparent and forthcoming and communicating those to their consumers and to their clients and to their partners and to their team.
I'm actually going to challenge Team All Love to do that on that day, and participate in On Purpose and really talk about what their purpose is on that day. I want to know, as their leaders, why they do what they do and why they show up.
Yes. I feel the same way. And can I say this, Luvvie? I know lots of people ask me this question. They always say, well, Jovian, how do you help people find their purpose? If people are feeling like, what's my purpose? Let me tell them. And I think I don't answer this question the same way every time. And I think I do so because I understand the question is so big that I think there's a lot of humility that comes over me when I even begin to approach it, because I think it's a personal question too.
Yeah.
But I would tell people and offer them these 4 B's to kind of center yourself on. And the biggest B, I would say, is breadcrumbs. You remember that ridiculous story growing up, Hansel and Gretel?
Yes.
That was, very scary. But Hansel and Gretel off in the woods, they used breadcrumbs and ultimately these stones to help them back to safety, to send them back home. And I think of home as like this sense of purpose and an understanding of why. And so I encourage people to pick up the breadcrumbs that have been all around you. And sometimes it's your family, your friends, it's your village that has the breadcrumbs, because, again, they can help you see what you can't see. And the breadcrumbs that I found that have been most helpful in helping to remind me of who I've always been, what I've been called to be in the world, this breadcrumb that goes back to betrayal, like moments of potential or active betrayal in your life, when you betrayed yourself or when you felt like you were going to, but you didn't. Because your decision in that moment and your feeling and reaction to it helps you to get clarity. Like for me, that Junior Butcher moment, that was a moment of potential betrayal. But my decision in that was a clear reminder of who I was supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
The other B I'd offer people is belief. So for me, my faith is a huge part of it. The way that I understand my relationship with God and my Creator and Jesus, that's a huge part of the way that I think I have been set apart. I have been intentionally created. So I encourage people to explore your belief system, ones that have been given to you, and integrate those that have been given to you to see where they stand up now. Like what is truth for you. And then the other B is a burden. Like I think the burdens of our heart are specific and particular to us. If you were to consider that the things that have shaped you are unique and that they were selected, if you will, there's a particular reason why you could be moved by seeing a certain commercial on TV and perhaps I'm not. Right?
Yeah.
Or, I may be overwhelmed when I run into young kids of color who are trying to get into soccer. There's a particular reason I'm going to feel that way, whereas you may be more compelled, seeing young kids think about STEM or something. So I think you should pay attention to what that burden is and honor the burden of our heart. Honor what that burden is telling us, because our skills, experiences, and resources can help send us to a place of activation. Like they can send us to a place where a job or an experience or a relationship or a community where our sense of purpose can be activated in a different way. But that can't happen if we're not going down enough to pay attention to what that burden is, what the potential acts of betrayal, and belief. So those are the big breadcrumbs I give people. This question of like, how do I begin to understand my sense of purpose?
I need people to rewind that piece and play it again to themselves, because that's a question that people ask all the time. How do I find my why? How do I find my purpose? So that actually does help. And I think sometimes we ignore the things that's already in front of our face because we think it's too easy. Typically, that thing, that gift that we wake up and do seamlessly and flawlessly, and we just can't help but do, a lot of times that's our gift that we're just not paying attention to. So that's dope. That's dope. So On Purpose Movement, I'm definitely participating this year. I want people to. I participated the last 2 years. I'm gonna keep doing it because I think it's really important and significant work that you're doing, and I'm always rooting for it. So I always got to ask people, as you are being this person and being this dope space holder and powerful Black woman, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
Girl, you already know. So, so a number of things. My self-care routine is I don't play about it, girl. I do not play. I get my naps. My husband calls me Nap, like that's one of my big nicknames. Like I am not afraid to sleep whenever, however, I got to get it, I will. I think when I'm really caring for Jovian, I'm watching what I eat because it actually does make me feel better, and I'm sleeping, and which means I'm not traveling. Yep. And I'm also spending time with the people that I most deeply want to spend time with. So number one is my husband. That means there's a lot of sex involved. That means there's a lot of rest.
Come on.
You already
That's
know.
the real. That's the real.
That's the realest. Look, hashtag stay married, hashtag always. So, yeah, my self-care routine involves rest, good food, sex, reading, and just relaxing. Mm-hmm.
Yo, listen. I love that you put sex in there because people never say that.
They're lying. I don't have time to lie. I'm trying to stay married, and I will. So.
Amen. Okay, the important things of physical touch and love languages.
Hey, you heard it. You heard it.
I'm here for it. So are you a massage girl? Are you the one who's like, I gotta do facials,
yes.
I do candles?
Oh, no. Give me the 80, 120 minutes. Like, yes. I want to get massaged down. However long they would like, and it's possible, I would like that. Please.
You know what's funny? When I tell people, like, oh, my God, do you go for the 90 minutes? They're like, 90 minutes? That's a long time. No, it's not.
Is it? No, not even close. Girl, we use Soothe. Do you use that where, they'll come to your house?
Yes, I've done that before.
Oh, yeah. We will have people come into the crib. We'll have the music set up. That means, like, that's even better to me sometimes because, like, I don't physically want to go somewhere. Like, just come on over and, we get to use the same people. It's just great. Mm-hmm.
So you enjoy do the couples massage in the house?
Oh, yes. We'll do couples massage in house or wherever we are. Airbnb, studio houses. We'll get it. Oh, yeah.
Yo,
we might go get a massage today while you're playing. What's today? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm overdue, and you actually just inspired me to be like, yo, you know what? Maybe tonight maybe I'm gonna order one of those services to come to the crib and give us a rub down. Yes.
You need to go ahead and get it, girl. It's amazing. Oh, other part of our self-care is really important. George and I are very, we don't play about our date night. So we have a date night every Friday. If for whatever reason we can't do it Friday because there's some schedule stuff, we still do it. So that also is important. I mean, keeping that routine and honoring our marriage, our love, making sure we are keeping each other as a priority is really important.
That's clutch because I think we do kind of forget all of that. We forget ourselves. We just run around like headless chickens. So
headless chickens, girl.
Headless chickens. I'm working on it because I know I'm on headless chicken mode right now. So you just inspired me.
You are.
I am, girl.
You are. We're gonna talk later about your portfolio allocations right now.
Girl, my portfolio allocation is all out of whack right now. Tashonda will roast me. I actually haven't talked to Tashonda. She's one of my mentors who I'll like check in with, and she'll be like, "How's your portfolio right now?" If I was to tell you what my portfolio is, it's trash. So I got to recalibrate my portfolio. So I got to do that. I got to do that. So we're going to catch up so you can hold me accountable. Because, y'all, Jovi holds me accountable. She's the one who's like, ma'am, what is going on?
I will. People don't know. You and I, we have the talks that other people don't want to have.
Yes.
In moments of crisis, you already know what it is.
I'm like, you're one of the first people I call in the moments of crisis because I'm like, if there's one person who can give me perspective and also hold me accountable for who I'm supposed to be, Jovian Zayne is that girl.
And I'm so glad I can do that for you, Luvvie, and I'm glad you can do it for me. Just because, there are other people who've done it for us forever, who just have held us accountable. to being who we are supposed to be in the world. Like, I say to everybody, like, you're not like everybody else. It's just it. And everybody can take that same message. If you consider the power of your uniqueness, you should take yourself more seriously. Like, we should all be taking ourselves more seriously in a way that makes sure that, like, we rise to the occasion of our purpose. I had this, like, really important revelation in the shower, which is all of where my good revelations come from.
As everybody's good revelations come through. You be solving life problems in the shower, yeah.
Girl, that water streaming down is like a cleansing vibe. But I had this this thing hit me. You know, the Bible talks about to whom much is given, much is required. And I remember thinking, well, what if it's just, you know, I've always thought about that in terms of like gifts and resources, money or whatever. But what if it's about purpose? Like, to whom purpose is given, purpose is required. And if we all are given a sense of purpose, that is the thing that is most required of us. And so I encourage people through that, like, that is what's most required of us, each and every one of us, to double down on an understanding of ourselves and to be intentional in how we show up. Like, take yourself seriously enough, take your creator seriously enough to not play games with the time that you have. Like, I just believe each of us is too important. We've been gifted too much. And we just matter. We just matter. I want everyone to be reminded that they're worthy of being seen. And I think you're seen most clearly when you're really in touch with who God's called you to be.
That's real. That's real. I affirm that. I hold that. I'm going to use that as a reminder because you already, I got a lot to process, yo. I got a lot to process. Like, you always be dropping the gems. I'm like, I got to pick that up, put it in my bag, take it with me.
Love you.
I got to do it. And I am so thankful for you and so thankful for your presence. And I think you elevate the rooms that you're in. So you are constantly making people and places better, which that's a life well lived. So shout out to you. I love you dearly. And
I love you.
Yo, I'm always cheering you on. And yo, On Purpose Movement, changing lives. So people go to onpurposemovement.com, dayofpurpose.com?
Actually .org. And then they can go to both. We bought everything. But go to dayofpurpose.org if you want to get the direct link and get everything that you could think about in relationship to the International Day of Purpose. And seriously, no matter where you are in the world, whether you are in Kuwait, there's actually programming in Kuwait.
Wow.
If you are in Miami, if you are in Belize, we got something for you. So virtual, in person, let's do it.
Bet. All right. Thank you so much for dropping these gems and spending some time.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Bye, love.
And I'll call you later. Bye.
Bye.
When it comes to finding your why, finding your purpose, I loved her suggestion about being quiet enough and still enough to pay attention to the signs that have already been given to you. I think we all know deep down in our spirits who we are and what we're meant to do, but we let fear or imposter syndrome or the distractions of everyday life drown out that voice within. But if we can get quiet, we can hear it and start to do something about it. And if you need more ideas on figuring out your why, you can use the questions Jovian suggested in this episode. Who are you supposed to be? What are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to show up and move throughout the world? Grab a journal and find a quiet spot and answer those questions. You'll start to see the patterns emerge that will help you lean into your purpose and discover your why. I'm asking my team to participate in the Day of Purpose this year on June 20th. I want to challenge you to ask your team at work or your group of girlfriends to do the same, or just you do it. Visit dayofpurpose.org to find out the details and get more ideas on what you can do to live more on purpose. You can also check out the Instagram @dayofpurpose and follow Jovi. She's @Jovian Zayne, JOVIAN ZAYNE. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Professional Troublemaker podcast. If you loved what you heard, make sure you subscribe to Professional Troublemaker in your podcast platform of choice and share it with people. Let them know this is dope. Also, order my namesake book, Professional Troublemaker, the Fear Fighter Manual, anywhere that you buy books. I especially love when you buy it from independent bookstores. So go to professionaltroublemakerbook.com for more, because this book is game-changing, and I'd say that even if I wasn't the one who wrote it. please make sure you rate this show and leave a comment with a 5-star review, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you choose to listen. Feel free to also share some insights and whatever connected with you on social media. And be sure to tag us. We are at Professional Troublemaker on Instagram. And me, I'm at Luvvie everywhere. Until next time, have the courage to speak your truth and show up as yourself. Create good trouble.